Hi everyone, welcome back. Hope you're all well. Well, the sun's just come out on cue, but it's been actually quite wet this last 3 days. We've had persistent drizzle, so I've not been able to do a great deal outside, and that's why we're in the greenhouses. I just thought we'd have a quick look at the tomatoes and cucumbers just to see how they're getting on. I know I bang on about them a lot, but it's not really great to walk on the beds at the moment. So if the weather picks up a little bit, we'll pop outside and we'll just see what progress we're making there as well. Okay, so I'll catch you in a moment. Well, you join me at the doorway to the 16x8 greenhouse, and the weather's perked up really nicely now. We've had about 10 minutes of sunshine, but if you look up at the sky you can see that it looks quite heavy, so I'm expecting the rain to start again. It's rained nearly all morning. I've potted about in the greenhouses, but I've not really been able to venture outside. So we're in the greenhouse, as I say, and one of the things that I wanted to touch on was the importance of light intensity and just the general quality of light. It is important to keep your greenhouses clean, and it's important, if you can, to site your greenhouse so that it's not surrounded by trees and other obstacles, because light is key when it comes to growing tomatoes and cucumbers and any other crops in your greenhouses for that matter, because it's key to producing the sugars in the plants through photosynthesis. Now, if we look at the tomatoes in the front section of this greenhouse, we've got the beefsteaks on the left, the cherries on the right, and it's really well lit, this greenhouse, and you can see they've absolutely romped away in this last 2 weeks. I think it's the 18th of June today, and I think the last update that touched on the tomatoes here was the 4th of June, so we're exactly 2 weeks. And the tomatoes have more than doubled in height. The cherries on the right here are probably the best part of 4 feet in height now, and the beefsteak on the left are not that far behind for that matter either. But they're still stocky, that's the other thing. They're not weedy or spindly. The cherries have now nearly all got 4 trusses, 3 in flower and 1 just forming. And on the beefsteaks, I think we've probably got 2 on every plant, with a 3rd on 1 or 2 of them, or certainly they're all forming 3rd trusses, even if they're not yet in flower. So if we take a closer look, you'll see that some of the beefsteaks are actually doing really well. You can see this one, put my hand around it, it's already quite a large size. This is a brandy boy, and that looks like a fused tomato, so there are actually a couple of blooms there, a couple of flowers that are fused, and smells lovely getting this close to them. A little bit higher up we've got a pink brandywine, and this one again is massive. That's a fused one as well, but there are lots of others on all the other plants as well. The cherries are doing nicely, lots of tomatoes again, and as I say, they're lovely and stocky plants. I mean, if we look at this one here, if I put my finger against it, you can see just how stocky these plants are. And I try to grow them with good light from day one, and put them in decent pots when they're first potted on, and separate the plants when they're starting to grow on so that they get good light. And as a rule, my plants tend to be quite stocky and strong. So the cherries are a little bit thinner, it's fair to say, but not by a great deal. So all comes down to good light, and spacing of your plants as well obviously is important. If we just pop into the back of the greenhouse. I still can't believe just how well these plants are doing, and the cucumbers are cascading over the sides of the pots like grapes. And I said, it was only 5 days ago, it's Friday today, I think on Sunday in the last update, that there were probably maybe a dozen or so that would be ready before too long. And you can see that they're doing ever so well. And on this plant I can see 1, 2, there's one hiding at the back there as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Of a size where they can be taken now. Beautiful green glossy skins. On the next plant, the same again. I can see about 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again. You can see they're a really good size. Third plant, a little bit smaller. Well, maybe not actually. Look at that one, that's a beauty. 4 on that one, so we're already at about 14 or 15. And then on the last plant, 1, 2, 3, 4, about another 5 there. There are about 20 that could be taken, I guess. But I'm only going to take maybe 4 or 5, the 4 or 5 biggest, because obviously they're fresher taken off the plant. If you put too many in your fridge after 4 or 5 days, they start to go a little bit soft. So, but yeah, you can't grumble with these. These are the Piccolino variety. And if we look down at the standard cucumbers, you'll see that these are going on great guns as well. 3 Fem Spot and 1 Burpless, and 2 there on the left, 2 on the right, doing rather well. And if we just bend down, you can see that we've got some nice cucumbers on these as well. If I just show you this one, you can see that's just about ready to pick. I can't get it in shot, but it's a long one. It's 15-inch long. That's a nice one. A few more here at the side. So I would say there are 3 or 4 on this one that are going to be ready within the next few days. The second plant is a little bit slower, which is a good thing, because we don't want them all to come at once, because we've got enough as you've just seen. But there are a few forming on this one as well. If I turn around, you can see we've got probably 1, 2, 3, another big one there. Look, that one's probably ready to come off. These are Fem Spot. It's focused, you can see that now. Again, about 12, 14-inch long. And then on the Burpless, this is a single plant that we've got, only 1 Burpless this year. You can see that we've got probably 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 that will be ready within this coming week. So we've got to get through about probably about 30 cucumbers this week, I would say. Obviously some will be given away. You see the Burpless has its characteristic spikes. When they're smaller they're a little bit more abrupt. As they get bigger, obviously they don't seem quite as bad. But they generally have to be rubbed off under the tap before you use them. So every reason to be happy with the crop of cucumbers so far. And I've been taking them off during the week as well, incidentally, because when I last spoke to you I'd taken 16. I've now taken 23 off. So we're probably going to hit 50 in this coming week. And I've tied them all in, and there are cucumbers all the way up the plants, if you can see them there, all the way up. So I would imagine I'll get maybe 20 or 30 off each plant, and I've got 4 here. I did sow another 2 and they're growing on, they're ready to be pricked out because the weather's been so nice. Anyway, that's the greenhouse. Just before we move on and move outside, I just thought I'd show you the top greenhouse by way of comparison, and this is on the subject of light. Just to the side of this greenhouse I planted a Nashi pear tree. You can see it's just there, and that has actually provided a little bit of shade, and I knew that it would when I planted it. It's only been there about 18 months or so, and I kind of hoped that it would provide some shade, because this greenhouse was getting so hot, and the cherries on this side, they were tending to be burned at the top of the plants, even with shading. So I thought, well, I'll put a tree there. I can always take it out if it becomes a problem, but it's a small tree. It'll be pruned harshly, so it shouldn't get out of hand. But you can see in this greenhouse that the cherries are a little bit higher than the beefsteak, and I don't think that's any coincidence. I think it's down to the tree, and there are actually a few other apple trees in between this greenhouse and the next, and they afford a little bit of shade as well. So in this greenhouse, the tomatoes on the left, which are shaded by, as you can see, they're about 6 or 8 inch, maybe 10 inch shorter, they are shaded by the other plants and by a couple of trees outside, and it really does make a difference. Stocky plants again, as you can see. You can see there, look, it's a nice stocky stem to that beefsteak, and they're all the same. But it really does have an impact, and that's no bad thing for me, because I've got several greenhouses, and each greenhouse has a different set of growing characteristics, and that does mean, with careful management, if you've got a couple of greenhouses, that you can manage the speed at which your tomatoes ripen. And my hope is, and so far it's proving to be kind of vindicated, my hope is that the tomatoes in this greenhouse, particularly the beefsteak, will take a little bit longer to fill out and to ripen. The cherries will do their own thing. They're on the side of the greenhouse that gets the best light, the best sun, but the beefsteak in here, if I just take you in, you can see, although they're the same varieties as are in the other greenhouse, they are smaller, the tomatoes that are forming, as you can see. Plenty of tomatoes on them, not a great deal of dry set, if any. Most of the tomatoes are still in situ, along with the flowers. We'll just show you this though. This is quite interesting. This is a truss, believe it or not. You can see it. See how big that is? Look how thick that stem is. It's not a branch, is it? But it is actually a truss. You can see just there. Started there, threw off a couple of tomatoes, and then proceeded to grow on as if it were a separate plant, and then it's forming another flower there. So the question is, what do you do when that happens? And this happens typically with beefsteak. They've got a mind of their own of beefsteak. What do you do? Well, you can see it's putting the entire plant out of kilter. If we allow that to remain on the plant, it's going to continue to grow. It'll be 2 or 3 times as long. It'll be a mess. You won't really be able to tie it in. And it's a beefsteak variety. I think this one's a Paul Robeson. It only produces middle-size tomatoes as a rule, that weigh maybe a couple of 100 grams. So you don't want, you know, a dozen or so on there. So what I'll do is I'll cut it off just here, and we'll just retain these 2 tomatoes, and they'll fill out, and they'll be maybe that big. And we've got other trusses higher up, as you can see, and you can see the same thing's beginning to happen on this truss. It's got 3 tomatoes there, a few more at the end, but it's going to grow on in exactly the same way, and that little thing there is going to turn into that big monstrous thing there. So you need to take them out. Got to be brutal sometimes to be kind to the plant overall. So we'll have a couple of tomatoes there, we'll maybe have 3 on this one, and then on the next couple of trusses we'll have 3 or 4 probably. So it won't be a a massive yield from this plant, but hopefully we'll get, I don't know, maybe a dozen tomatoes in total that will have maybe a weight of a couple of 100 grams, and they should be tasty as well, and that's the key thing. It is a tasty tomato, Paul Robeson, and I have won a few prizes with it in the past. Right, anyway, we'll get outside because I know that rain's going to come before too long. We're just outside of the greenhouse and we're looking at the bed with the beans and the peas, and they've all benefited from the rain, and we've got quite a few pods on the Jaguar peas, and we've got some Monch 2 pods forming as well, so I'll show you those a little bit closer up. These are the Monch 2, the Shiraz variety. You can see that it's a purple pod. I've not grown this one before, so I'm not certain how big these are going to get, but I would imagine they will grow probably to about that size before they start filling out. So it might only be a day, 2 days maximum before these are ready to pick, but picked they will be. And I showed you the little flowers in the last update. They've sort of closed a little bit because it's gone cooler, but you can see there are Monch 2 all over the plant. The other variety of Monch 2 have not yet started to produce the pods, and these are a French variety, I believe. I can't remember the name, but I'll pop it up on the screen. And these have a little bit more growing to do. They're already about 4 feet high, but I think they might grow another 6 inch or so. But they're, as you can see, full of flowers. The first row of Jaguar pea, they're in pod as well, but it'll probably be a week or so before they fill up. 1 or 2 are fattening a little bit, but we've a few days to go yet with those. And I did put the sticks in, as I said I would, cut down some canes, but the rain's flattened a lot of the plants. If I turn to my right, you can see it's done the same with the main crop potatoes. We've had quite a bit of rain over this last 2 or 3 days. Probably about 50 or 60 millilitres, something like that. These are sweet peas waiting to be planted, but I'm only showing you to show you the water in the tray. And I emptied this tray yesterday, and granted the pots and the plants are displacing and pushing the water up a little bit, but I would say we've had maybe 20 millilitres, 25 millilitres overnight. So it's all welcome. But I need to get these sweet pea planted. This is a bed that was late to get its manure, so it wasn't well broken down. In fact, the manure is probably only about 3 months old, 3 or 4 months old. So I decided to grow plants in this one that wouldn't be affected, that would get a good wash, would have a skin on them. We've got the dwarf sunflowers at the bottom here. They've enjoyed the water, the rain. Then we've got 5 courgettes, 4 green with 1 yellow one in the middle. You can see from the variegated colour in the leaves just there that it's going to be a yellow one. And then just before the rain came, I planted out 5 gherkin plants, and these all look really healthy. I held them back until the weather was a little bit more settled. It's a bit breezy now, it's been wet, but they have had about 4 or 5 days of sun in between the 2 bouts of rain, and so far they don't look too jaded. And then you can see just in front that I've managed to get the 8 dahlia plants out, and I've just put some stakes in case the wind picks up and they can be tied in gently. But they look quite nice. They're healthy plants. Again, I held back putting them in, and I think the varieties are Julie 1, Mambo, Bishop Auckland and Nicholas, and I've reversed the order at the back because you can see the dark rusty bronzy coloured ones are a little bit taller, so those 2 plants should fill out in the middle, maybe be a little bit taller, but they're in, that's the main thing. And they've had some slug pellets put around them. I have got some homemade rhubarb spray, rhubarb juice spray if you want to call it that, or a rhubarb tea that does tend to ward off the animals, the critters, and I don't know whether it works on the black fly, but it gets sprayed on anyway. Fingers crossed. A little bit of wishful thinking never hurts, does it? But they're in. The second early potatoes in the 2 beds at the bottom of the 4th plot, they're doing really well. We had 10 days of rain, followed by probably 5 days of really nice weather, and then it started raining again. But they really shot up, and you can see from this side of the bed that they shot up the best part of a foot in the matter of a few days. Unfortunately, because they'd not really bushed out very much, they were still quite spindly. The weight of the rain has flattened them a little bit on this side, but they may perk up. But it doesn't really matter. It's just a cosmetic thing, isn't it, really? And a lot of the plants are in flower, as you can see here. So as soon as we finish with the potatoes in pots, then we'll start on these. Charlotte at the top and a few rows of kestrel at the bottom, and the same in the next bed. You can see the difference in the colour, can't you, if you look? A deeper green here and a more limey green. Well, they're the kestrel at the bottom. So they're the potatoes. Everything's looking okay. As I say, I've not been able to do a great deal on the plot. I've done a little bit of harvesting, taking pak choy and turnips. Had quite a few turnips, they're doing really well. But I do need to sow some more beans and some more munch too, because it's early enough still to do that, if you've not already. And I've got probably 3 or 4 beds to plant out with beetroot and brassicas. But that's just about it. Well, it was just a short update, this one just to keep you abreast with what's happening on the plot. I am busy. I've been down every morning, even though it's rained. I've been in the greenhouses, and I've tied in the tomatoes and cucumbers, and had a little bit of a rejig in the main working greenhouse. But hopefully in the next day or so the weather will brighten up a little bit, and I'll be able to get in and plant up the remaining beds. As you can see behind me, the sweet corn are looking really verdant and green. They've really enjoyed the rain and the sun that we had in between the 2 periods of rain. Starting to put some tassels on the top of them as well, so they all look to be okay. Anyway, that's it for this update. Hope you're managing to get down to the plot or into your garden and do a little bit of work, and fingers crossed we'll all have a little bit of sunshine within a day or 2 and we'll be hard at it again. Okay, well, take care, thanks for watching, thanks for commenting and subscribing, and I'll catch you again soon. All the best.